where we could be alone. Between city lights, we don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in a secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in a secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Livestream. I'm very happy to be back with you on a Monday evening after spending the weekend hanging out with some of the finest folks in all of FPV. I have to say that because they hung out with me. That's all it takes, really. I had a great weekend in Columbia, South Carolina, hanging out with Phantom FPV, Ken Herron, and the reason we went out there is Teddy Tuned. You may not have heard of him. He is a relatively small channel, but he reached out to me and said, hey, he had some questions I was working on with him, and he was like, yeah, I'm trying to get this quad in the air because there's an abandoned shopping mall that's going to be torn down in like 6 months, and I have an in that I can get us in and fly it. And he's like, I got to get this quadcopter flying good so I can take advantage of this opportunity. And I said, can I take advantage of that opportunity? And sure enough, I did. So I am incredibly psyched to release that video. It is just finished editing. I am so psyched. Let me show you some of the things that are going to be in this video. Not that, this. For example, flying in a shopping mall. Sure. We got some of that. Losing a quadcopter down an elevator shaft. Yeah, we got some of that. Trying to get a quadcopter out of an elevator shaft. Yeah, a little bit of that. You know, just good old shenanigans. Uh-oh. Yeah, good old shenanigans. So I'm super psyched to be able to share that with you guys. But I'm also just super psyched to be here with you. this evening. Actually, I think Ken Heron's video from the weekend just went up. Yeah, another thing we did while we were out there was... nice. Me and Ken Heron. I don't think you guys can hear the music. Oh, you can now. That's super loud. That's interesting. Oh, wait, here, let me fix that. There we go. That's not as loud, I think.
Welcome
It's still pretty loud.
back to FPV News. I'm Ken Heron.
And I'm Joshua Bardwell. Ken,
Yes.
drones. So definitely check out Ken's video. Here was the result of putting drone FPV goggles on a ABC News weatherman. He couldn't take it. He took it just fine. No. Yeah, that's over on Ken's channel, so check that out. Ken Heron. I guess the least I could do is put a link. Don't go though. You can't leave. Just bookmark that. Bookmark that for later if you haven't seen it yet. But don't go because we got a good stream coming up. It does look like Schizo, doesn't it? That does look like Schizo. A little bit. That looks like Schizo. I see what you're talking about. The resemblance is there. Of course he has nice hair. He's a professional news person. They all have nice hair, don't they? I don't know. He was pretty cool. He was legitimately psyched about, I think legitimately psyched. So I'm happy to have done that. That video will release on my freestyle edit and drone shenanigans, FPV shenanigans will release tomorrow. So, look out for it. But here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're here for. That's not okay. I don't like that. Philly style. Let's not. No, Philly style. No. I ban. I'm not going to report it, but we're banning this GIF from I don't like that. That's weird. I mean, I'm sure that's a lovely person. And if that was my friend, I'd probably find it hilarious. But just as a random GIF, I don't know if I really approve. What we're here for is for me to answer your questions, and that's what we're going to do. I am going to take your questions from the YouTube chat. But let's be honest. I'll only be able to take so many of those questions because there are a lot of them. I will take the questions from here in the Discord. And let's be honest, these people in the Discord are my patrons, and so I have to pay extra attention to them. So I will. And I will be taking questions from the super chat. If you guys hit the $ down at the bottom, I am legally obligated. No, it's not quite like that, but I am stream ethics. As the ethics of being a streamer, it creates an obligation to read those. So I will be reading those a little later in the stream. But we're going to just start taking some questions now. And the very first question is going to be from Tony Briz. The very first question is going to be from Tony Briz. Are these micro axis HD stubby antennas better than the stock antennas for the DJI goggles? Do they offer better performance? That's impossible to say without some testing. Let me put up this is the actual antennas he's asking for. So what Tony is asking about is the fact that GetFPV has a pretty cool new product. GetFPV's new product is an adapter that lets you use an RPSMA or SMA antenna with the DJI goggles too. So you don't have to buy specialized antennas just for that. And the question is whether these axes are better. The performance of the stock antennas is really good. So you need to do some testing to justify that decision. But it's hard to know, is it so good because of the DJI magic and it would be even better with some aftermarket antennas? Or is it, DJI did a pretty good job. Generally, DJI does a pretty good job with their antennas and with their RF. So if I was a betting man, I would bet that you might not see much difference. When we think about the V2 goggles, a lot of people like to use aftermarket antennas, but the main reason for that is that they want a directional antenna, which those axes are they're not directional. I guess I don't know for a fact that the stock antennas are directional, or they want a lower profile antenna that's easier to put away, like stubbies. But you're not getting any of that with these goggles, are you? These are higher profile, right? And they're not directional. So I would wager there's not much difference, but I couldn't say for sure because I haven't tested them. Why don't you get them and test them? Oh, maybe I will. Let's see here. Is DigiView still working? Asks Brown Solo. Brown Solo, if you can't get DigiView working, then one guess is that you have WTFOS. You rooted your goggles, you got WTFOS installed, and when you install WTFOS, I don't think WTFOS by itself breaks the DigiView, the video output, but I'm pretty sure there used to be a situation, and I think it still exists, where if you have the MSP OSD plugin installed, then video out breaks. Is anybody in the chat or on the Discord, is anybody up to date on the latest status there? Does DigiView work with MSP OSD, with video, with WTFOS? Let's see if the chat comes up with anything. But I don't know if... I think that's why. You could test that. You could easily test that by uninstalling WTFOS. Then see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then it's something else. Like, sometimes the USB cable, for some reason, it seems like it's directional. And if you flip the USB cable, it works. I am 99% sure I got wide FPV working with the V2 goggles with WTFOS installed, but I'm not sure enough to say that definitively. So we'll see if the chat comes up with an answer there. Let's take a few more questions from the patrons and from the chat before we go to the super chats. Fishy wants to know. I've got the O3 air unit with V2 goggles. OSD freezes at about 3 minutes of flight. Both the DJI and the Betaflight OSD freezes. Yikes. Well, if the DJI OSD is freezing, like I'm going to assume that you can't get the menu or anything, you've got a problem with your goggles. That's not like a Betaflight issue. It's not a WTFOS issue. It's not any of that nonsense. It also isn't related to WTFOS because when you're using the O3 air unit, you are in a completely separate partition on the goggles. WTFOS is on the DJI digital FPV system partition, which is what's used when you're using the Vista. So when you boot to the O3 partition, nothing about WTFOS is even in play. So I would update the firmware on the goggles and everything else too. And then if it kept doing it, I would contact DJI service support and see if they want to exchange it or repair it. Because I don't know what else could cause that. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's sort of the way it is with DJI. If you can't do one of the three things that fixes the problem, then just F you, go to support and get it replaced or repaired. There's no known solution, Fishy. I haven't heard this problem. The good news is that it's not a general problem, so you're the weirdo. Unfortunately, you're the odd man out. Ghost FPV suggests changing your SD card. Fishy, try taking out your SD card. It's as plausible as anything else. It's as plausible as anything else, man. Mad Max says, I get a weird font bin warning when I power up the V2 goggles. What warning? What warning? What is the actual warning? That font.bin, there's a message when you root, and you install the MSP OSD plugin, there's a message, font.bin, that shows up every time you boot, but it's not like weird. I don't know. Yeah, that's the normal, that just does that every time you boot up, Mad Max. Then it goes away, right? It's no big deal. Okay, no more DJI questions for now. That's like 17 DJI questions in a row. Now we're going to piss off all the people who don't fly DJI. This is not just the DJI channel. Despite what DJI wants to pay me to say. Wait, no, I made that up. Let's take a couple more questions from the chat before we do the super chats. Oh, we did take a few questions from the chat. I guess. IT Nathaniel wants to know, what's the cheapest GoPro you would recommend, JB? What's the cheapest GoPro you'd recommend? Nope, like this. The last time I shopped for GoPros, I bought the GoPro Hero 8. My approach is that I always buy GoPros from Best Buy, because the Best Buy insurance is the simplest way to get GoPros replaced on the cheap. Costs about, well, they recently started making you buy the 4-year plan, which is sort of stupid, because like the 2-year plan is cheaper, but it's never going to last 2 years anyway. So now they make you buy the 4-year plan, so it's like $60. But the thing is, I'm always going to destroy the GoPro before the insurance runs out. I can almost never remember running out that 2-year clock on the Best Buy insurance. So at the end of the day, $60 for insurance is still worth it, because then I get a new camera for $60, and you just keep rolling that. The last time I shopped for GoPros, I bought a bunch of Hero 8s. I believe I did that right before Rampage. I have currently gone through almost all of them. Speaking of which, yeah. My philosophy is that as long as it works, I keep using it. I don't care if the screen is broken, but eventually they stop working and don't power up and a bunch of nonsense. And then I take them to Best Buy. And either Best Buy gives me another one, in which case I keep going, or Best Buy says, we're going to give you a gift card. And then I start thinking about buying the next sort of best thing. I have to say, if I was shopping today, I probably would think hard about the Hero 11 Mini. In terms of features and form, I know that's not the question you asked. In terms of features and form factor, the Hero 11 Mini is exceptional. I have heard about issues with it locking up in flight and losing footage. And I'm curious if anybody out there has the Hero 11 Mini, can speak to whether the new firmware update has fixed those issues. If you have, put it in the chat or put it in the Discord, because I'm really on the fence as to whether to sort of dive into the Hero 11 Mini or continue to hold. To really answer your question, what's the cheapest GoPro? What's the cheapest GoPro you would recommend? I would go to Best Buy, and I would look at what they've got. So they've still got the Hero 8 Black. Oh, unavailable nearby. Shipping unavailable. Okay, so I would buy the Hero 8. I flew Hero 7s for a while. $229 for the Hero 8. Unavailable. Oof, Hero 11. Hero 10. Hero 9. oh boy, I really wish I could get the Hero 8. It's such a price difference. And the Hero 9 is so big. How much is the Hero 11? See, here's the thing. The Hero 9 is $300 and weighs something like 170 grams. If my memory's right, I could... No, the 9 wasn't 170. That's... No. The Hero 9 is $300 and is heavier than the Hero 11, which is $50 more. Even if the Hero 9 was the same weight as the Hero 11, I probably would pay $50 more for the Hero 11 just because it's got the 8x7 sensor, 7x8, whatever it is, and it has no screen to break. But that's what I would do. At the end of the day, whatever I buy from Best Buy is the best price because I can get it with insurance, and then when I break it, I get another one for $60. Now, if you can't or don't want to shop at Best Buy, I think the Hero 8 is the cheapest one that is currently still available. JCM says used Hero 8s are like $125. Why bother elsewhere? Because here's the thing, JC, and again, if you don't live within driving distance of a Best Buy or like you live outside of the United States, this may not be your equation, but the ability to buy the insurance on the Hero 8 and get a new one for $60 when you smash it outweighs everything else to me. $229 for one Hero 8 plus $60 for the next one plus $60 for the next one until they stop making them. That's cheaper than paying $120 for a used one with no insurance. Okay. So that's my answer to that question. And now it's time to take some super chats. And we've got a few super chats too. The first super chat is going to be from Dan Martin. Dan asks, do you know if the Fat Shark Recon HD box goggles work with the new Avatar VTXs? I'm a noob and it's a bit confusing. Yes, Dan. All Walk Snail / Avatar / Fat Shark Dominator systems are cross-compatible. So, if you have the Fat Shark Recon HD goggles, that's the Walk Snail compatible Fat Shark box goggle, that will work with all video transmitters Walk Snail has ever made. The new VTXs are completely compatible with the old cameras, and the old VTXs are compatible with the new cameras. In fact, I don't think Walk Snail has made a piece of hardware that isn't backwards compatible with all or cross compatible with all of its other stuff. So I don't think you need to worry about it yet. Can anybody in the chat think of an example where a piece of Walk Snail equipment, like a receiver, is not compatible with a certain VTX or something like that? Anyway, I don't think so. Next up, thank you, Uncle Stewie, for a $10 super chat. We'd love to see you and Blunty at Castle Crash 2.0 in September. Where's Castle Crash? Which one is that? Southeast. Oh, I knew it. Yeah, it's in the southeast. Trenton, South Carolina. I was just in South Carolina. Wow. How about that? Well, anything's possible. But I learned, yeah, anything's possible. And now for the next 9 months, people will ask, I heard you were going to Castle Crash. I heard you were going to Castle Crash. It's not what I said. It'd be tough for me to commit that far out. It's tough because if you ask me too close, I'll say, oh, I've got other things planned. But if you ask me too far in advance, I'll be like, oh, I don't know if I want to block it off. That's just how there's a very fine art to figuring out how to get me to go places. I generally don't want to go places. I got a I don't know if I would call it a job offer. I got a potential opportunity recently to go to New Zealand and do work. And I was like, I don't know if I want to go to New Zealand. And my wife was like, what do you mean you don't want to go to New Zealand? And I was like, it's a long flight. I don't really. She was like, I would go to New Zealand in a heartbeat. And I said, if I accept this job and then I go to New Zealand, I'm just going to spend the time I'm there working my ass off. So, like, all I'm really getting, I mean, I guess I could stay longer after the work was done. All I'm really getting is plane tickets to New Zealand. I was like, I don't know. So, I don't really like to go anywhere. What can I say? I appreciate the invite. Then what happens, though, is every so often I just am like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then I go somewhere. But generally, if you ask me if I want to do something, I don't want to do it. I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, I don't just mean FPV stuff. I mean anything. If you were like, hey, do you want to come to a party? I'd be like, I'd rather stay home. Maybe I'm an introvert, right? Is that what I am? Ooh, maybe I'm autistic. That's it. Oh, no, wait. TikTok says I have ADHD. I'm not sure how that jives with, I don't know. Anyway, thank you for the invite. Thank you, Yad Collado, for, I hope I said your name close to correct. Thank you for a $10 super chat. The goggles, too, have an internal antenna. What do you think the band is it runs on? I believe that all of the goggles 2 antennas are dual band, so they're sort of equally bad at 2.4 gigahertz and 5.8 gigahertz because the V2 system uses both bands. So I'm going to guess that they're dual band. If it's UFL, could there be a future upgrade possible? Yeah, absolutely. If you're willing to tear the goggles open, then it could be. Good to have you here, Black Jungle, in the Discord server, making the memes. Next up. What is the best all-round 5-inch quad frame? I'm debating between the AOS and the Nazgul, but I'm open to other options. Thanks for a $5 super chat, Demos. The AOS has a lot going for it. The AOS has a lot going for it. Of course, it's well known for being... Come on. It's well known for having great resonance characteristics and tunability. Some people don't like the way it looks, which matters to them. It's very versatile. It can hold 30 millimeter front, center, and rear. 20 millimeter, of course. It's not the most durable in the world. It has its fans, though. It definitely has its fans. A lot of people would say that the Apex is the best 5-inch frame. It is. I mean, it certainly is a contender. Like, I don't know what the best. Like, I don't think there is a single best frame, but like the Apex is known for being incredibly durable, having great resonance characteristics. It even looks pretty cool. The main thing to dislike about the Apex, I suppose, is the price. It is pretty pricey, although it does come with a warranty, I'm pretty sure. I don't think it's an unlimited warranty, but I think you get one replacement. So really, that $95 price is actually only $50, assuming you destroy the frame. At which case, the price isn't that bad. It's got good 3D printed accessories. It's a really great frame. The main reason that I don't pay more attention to the apex. I started saying this as a joke, and as I started saying it, I realized that there's a grain of truth in it. So now I kind of don't want to finish the joke because people will think it's 100% true and misinterpret it. So I just want to preface this by saying this is like 85% a joke and 15% true. Okay? The main reason I don't pay more attention to the apex is that it's like Mr. Steele's signature frame. And it's not, here's where I'll get in trouble because people will clip that. It's not that like I have anything against Mr. Steele. I don't. He's a cool dude. And every time I've interacted with him, I feel like we've got along well. But it's so associated with him that if I switched to the apex and flew nothing but the apex, everybody would be like, oh, he's flying Mr. Steele's frame. And then I would just, I don't know how I would like be able to live with that. It's a good frame though. Let's see. What about the Nazgul? I've like Nazgul frame. The Nazgul is an okay frame. Now I don't like the Evoke because it's limited to 20mm hardware. Oh, that's the Evoke. Wait, are you talking about the Evoke or the original Nazgul? I'm not a fan of the Nazgul frame. The Nazgul bind and fly is a good quad, but the maintenance of the Nazgul frame with the side plates and the LEDs and all the BS, and it only fits 20mm hardware. The only thing the Nazgul Evoke frame is good for is the Nazgul Evoke bind and fly. I would never in a million years buy this frame and build it out myself. And if I bought the bind and fly, the minute I had to work on it and pull off the side plates and unplug the LEDs, I'd be cussing. I don't think it's worth it. I have an Evoke. I love it. It flies great. I've beat the shit out of it. It's a stunningly good bind and fly. As soon as it breaks and I have to work on it, I'm going to give it away. I'm going to be like, okay, good run. You had a good run. And I'm going to put it in a giveaway and give it to one of my patrons so I don't have to work on it. I'm not joking. Now, you may not feel that way. That's how I feel. GEP-RC Mark V, very good. Metal front end, like it. The folks over at GetFPV would die if I talked about the best 5-inch frames and didn't mention the JB QAVS, my own signature frame. And I love this frame. That's why it's my signature frame. The main downside of this frame today is that it doesn't have a frickin' front end for the 03 camera. That is coming real soon now. Wish it had been sooner. What can you do? Currently, if you're running the 03, this is not a good choice for you. That will change soon. Yeah, those are some. SpeedyBee Master 5, Timberline FPV wants to know. The SpeedyBee Master 5 has its people who love it. I have criticized some aspects of the design at length, so I'm not going to do it again. But it definitely has people who love it. Aza's RC and Adventures wants to know, how strong are the arms on your frame? They are, if you like beat the shit out of your quad in concrete bandos all day, the QAVS is not the frame for you. You're going to be changing arms. You're going to want something with like 6mm arms, maybe even thicker arms like the like Bot Grinder's Demibot or the tank from Rotor Riot. This is not a basher. I mean, I took it to the mall. I crashed it in the mall all day. Didn't break a single arm. Nevertheless, I can tell you for sure, that if you are really hardcore, you're not gonna like how often the arms on the QAVS break. I have broken one arm in all the QAVSs I've owned, And every other frame I've killed, I've wore it out some other way. But actually, literally, you crash and you break an arm literally one time. But that's how I fly, and that's why it's my frame. Everybody thinks that they need a frame that you can smash into a wall 500 times and have it not break. And I'm like, well, only if you smash into a wall 500 times in a day of flying. I don't. There's a whole bunch of others we could list, but we're going to go on. Mouse FPV, thank you for a $5 super chat. In a light crash, the front right motor gives no movement until reboot. Sometimes also the rear left motor, not even twitch, flight controller, or ESC. Like, one thing you could do is plug in USB, look in the motors tab, and see if you see 0% errors or 100% errors. Okay, mouse? If after the crash, when the motors don't spin, you look in the motors tab and you see 100% errors, that tells you that the flight controller is not talking to the ESC. And that tells you where your problem is. It could be a signal wire coming out of the flight controller, for example. If you look in the motors tab and you see 0% errors, that tells you that the flight controller is talking to the ESC, but the ESC power output section is not working. That's the first thing I would do there. My gut feeling is it's the ESC, but I can't say for sure. Okay. That's where I would start. And mouse, if you do that during the, well, you would have to crash. The thing is, mouse, you have to crash. The problem has to happen, and then don't unplug the quad. Just take it over to your laptop, plug in USB instantly, and look at the status of the flight controller. So you're actually not going to be able to do that on this live stream. I was going to say if you do it during the live stream, I will check you out. I'll check it out for you. Lane Seawright, thanks for a $10 super chat. My ExpressLRS receiver binds to my transmitter when plugged in via USB on the bench. Yay! But when powered via battery, it gets stuck in bootloader. Any ideas? There are some flight controllers that need I think it's a pull-up resistor on the TX line but I don't know why it wouldn't do that from USB. No. Oh, man. Oh, man. I don't actually think this is the problem, but I don't know. Move it to a different UART. That's what I would say. There is a known issue with some flight controllers where it pulls I don't remember, I think it's the TX line. It does whatever, there's a thing you can do to the TX and the RX pads that forces the receiver into bootloader. And some flight controllers accidentally do that by default. It's rare, but not impossible. Maybe that's happening now. I don't know what else would cause it to go into bootloader only when powered by battery. What I would do is I would head on over to the ExpressLRS Discord and ask over there. Gen X FPV, do you have a video showing why this problem happens and how to fix it? Unfortunately, Gen X, you can't post the link because you will get moderated. You want to email it to me or something? What's the title of the video, Gen X? What's the title of the video? Tell me the title. All right, we'll keep looking for that. Big fan. Thank you, Big Fan. Thank you for a $5 super chat. What goggles work with glasses, or are there goggles that have corrective lenses in them? Yes, 100%. Big fan. The Walk Snail goggles, the HC0 goggles, and the DJI goggles, the new goggles too, all have adjustable focus. So you're good to go there. Other goggles can have corrective lens inserts placed in them. Actually, the Orca goggles, if you're looking for analog goggles, also have adjustable focus. The HDO goggles, the Fat Shark HDO 2 have adjustable focus. Lots and lots and lots of them have adjustable focus. As far as goggles working with glasses, for that, the V2 goggle is really the main one, but Gen X, I'm still looking for that video if you find it. Okay. All right, let's see. That is the first batch of super chats. Let me start queuing up the next batch of super chats. And we will take some questions from the regular chat for a little while, and the Patreon. Of course, the Discord. I want to remind you guys that I have a Discord server where beautiful people hang out and chat with each other. Some of the best people in FPV. Oh, I shouldn't say that. That's just puffery. But they are pretty cool people, and almost like such a nice environment on my Discord server. Everybody's helpful. You know, you ask a question on Facebook, and like somebody shows up to just shit all over you for being stupid and why don't you Google? And nobody's like that on my Discord server. And by God, if they are, a moderator is going to slap them. So I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of the people there. We got troubleshooting forums. You know, where people try to help each other out. All kinds of good stuff. And the only way to join the Discord server is to join my Patreon. So if you're interested in doing that, whether because you just want to support the channel or whether because you want access to the server, either way, little as $2 a month is all it takes. And there's a link in the video description to my Patreon. Love to have you there. We just shadow banned the loudmouth noobs. Shut up. No, we don't, Aber. Loudmouth noobs are welcome. I say so. That's what I say. Zippy asks, let's get Zippy up here. Zippy asks, would 19,000 kV motors have similar flight times to 25,000 kV motors with a motor output limit at 76%? Zippy, I can't say for sure. I can't say for sure. In general, I suspect that wouldn't be the thing that would make the biggest difference in your flight time. Generally, if your motor output limiting at 75% is pretty safe, I bet you wouldn't notice much of a difference. Theoretically, you should be able to find some flight tests that would show some difference, but I'll bet you wouldn't notice much of it. Honestly, it'd be an interesting test. It'd be an interesting test. Take two identical quads, one with 19,000 kV, one with 25,000 kV, and fly them against each other. That's actually really interesting. No one would watch that video. That video would get 5,000 views, and which might sound like a lot, but that's a very interesting idea. Chris Thorney says, as my skills get better, my flight times get shorter, and my batteries get hotter. I really miss the 10 to 12 minute flights I was getting as a noob. Yep. What's the right way to test your motors after a big crash? Asks Vitaly Sacred. Send it over a lake. That'll scare the motors into not crashing because they want to. No, I'm joking. After a big crash, you listen to the motors and see that they sound smooth. You spin the motors with so after a big crash, You visually inspect the motors for damage. Like, do you just see that the motor is gouged to shit? Okay. You spin the motors with your finger. Do you feel roughness that wasn't there before? And then if those two things check out, you inspect the windings maybe for damage. Did the motor burn? If the windings are discolored or burned, then I probably would be careful about arming the quad because that can fry the ESC too. Once the motor sort of checks out physically, arm the quad and listen to the motor. So first you're going to arm the quad. Does the motor spin? Okay. If the motor stutters or doesn't start up, you fry the motor or the ESC. If the motor starts smoothly and spins at idle, then you raise the throttle and you hover and you listen. Do the motors sound smooth or does one of them sound rough? Does the quad seem to be flying normally? And then the next thing I would do is some throttle punches, just line of sight. If you can't fly line of sight, you can do it under the goggles, but like right in front of yourself, not like literally 2 feet in front of your face, but somewhere safe where if the quad falls out of the air, you'll be able to recover it. Do some throttle punches and just bop, 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 so that you can sort of stress the motor a little bit. Maybe do some flips and rolls, again, both directions, to sort of stress the motor and see if it stutters or falls out of the sky. And at that point, I would probably just send it. That's Bushy the Bird has a good suggestion. With the quad on the ground, right side up, use turtle mode to spin the motors. That way it won't go anywhere, but you'll just be able to listen and see that it sounds smooth. That's pretty smart. That's pretty smart. Yeah, it's a good question. That's the sort of checklist for what I do after I crash and want to make sure my motor's good. Is APD gear still any good? Asks Jamie Bryce. Yeah, as far as I know, APD is still the premier maker of X-Class and Cinelifter ESCs. Yeah, that's what I say. Has that changed? I don't think it's changed. Can a bad ESC impact the range of my signal? Matt Doherty wants to know. Can a bad ESC impact? Now, Matt, I don't know if you're talking about your control link or your video link, but let's take both of them. A bad ESC, the only way that a bad ESC could affect the range of your video link or your control link is if the ESC is damaged in such a way that it is creating electrical noise in the rest of the electrical system, which totally can happen. You start knocking capacitors off an ESC, for example, it'll inject a whole bunch of electrical noise back into the system. And as a result, it doesn't seem like your control link range is likely to be very affected. I don't know why, but it feels like that isn't as likely. But your video transmitter totally could get a bunch of electrical noise and it could reduce the range of that link. So I don't think it's super likely, but it's not out of the question. Let's see here. Let's take a couple more super chats. Wheelbarrow, thank you for a $5 super chat. What used drone would you buy to help start a YouTube channel? Okay, first of all, don't start a YouTube channel. It's a terrible idea. What I mean by that is, if your goal is to like be popular and have viewers and have subscribers and maybe make money, that's like saying I love to play guitar, so I want to be a pop musician. Your odds of success are extremely slim. Either either you're already a professional who knows how to start a successful YouTube channel, and you've decided that your next one is going to be FPV, in which case you have some chance of success, or you just want to do it for fun, and that's fine too. To that first point, if you don't think that that's a thing, I disagree. 1000%. If Mr. Beast woke up one morning, decided he loved FPV, and decided to start an FPV-related YouTube channel, in a year, he'd be the biggest FPV-related YouTube channel in existence. Because he's cracked the formula of how to be successful on YouTube. And there absolutely is a formula. And it's not a formula that anyone could write down. I mean, I guess Mr. Beast might have a masterclass. But, like, it doesn't mean that you could do it. But there's people out there who could do it. There's people out there who know how to successfully market and shoot and film. And if they decided to turn to YouTube, they could be just as successful there as anywhere else. The reason that they don't is because there's no money in it. There's not enough money in it. The skills to make a successful YouTube channel, you would be better off using those skills on a computer channel or a car channel. Bigger niches that make more money, and that's why we don't see those people in FPV very much. They're too busy doing other things with their money, their time. On the other hand, if you just love flying FPV and you want to start a YouTube channel because you love YouTube, by the way, if you love flying FPV, don't start a YouTube channel. Just fly FPV. Have fun. Only start a YouTube channel if you love YouTube. See the difference? A YouTube channel will just take time away from your ability to fly and have fun with your friends. Okay. What used drone would you buy to help start a YouTube channel? Buy whatever drone you will enjoy flying the most and make content about you having a great time flying it. No one will watch that content, but no one's going to watch any of the videos you make anyway, statistically speaking. So you may as well enjoy making it. And I don't want to sound like I'm picking on you or being a hater. That's the reality. So since almost no matter what you do, almost nobody is going to watch your content, at least you should enjoy making it. That's what I would say. Okay. And here's the thing. If you're lucky, maybe you will get some people who watch your content. Maybe it'll turn out you're actually good at making content. Maybe it'll turn out that you are great in front of a camera and you just click with people and they love what you're doing. Is that right? Like when Botgrinder started, I'm going to pick on Botgrinder. Why not? When Botgrinder started making content, I don't think he had experience as a content creator. Botgrinder is just a funny, charismatic, creative dude. He's just an interesting person who, when people see him, well, some of them are like, ugh, I hate this guy. But other people are like, I want more. And there's enough of those people that he got popular. It doesn't mean to take anything away from the work he puts in, but I don't think he became popular because he had prior experience as a content creator. He got experience as a content creator and grew and became good at it. So maybe you'll be the next Botgrinder. But probably you won't, and that's okay. So just have fun. What would I buy? I'd buy a 5-inch freestyle drone, and I would use my YouTube channel as an excuse to go around the country and fly 5-inch freestyle in cool locations. Because that's just what I like to do the most. Continuing on. Kim Fuse, thank you for a $2 super chat for bringing the weather guy to his knees. And by the way, if it turns out that Botgrinder had 3 YouTube channels and a zine and a podcast and a radio show, and I just didn't know about all his media experience, then take everything I said back. But I don't think so. Thank you, Fortune Cookie, for a $5 super chat. Any resource recommendations for iNav and Wing FPV? What's the best resource for iNav FPV? Surely there's an iNav Discord server. I probably am even on it. Like, it's got to be like a Discord server, right? None of that is iNav. Does Pavel not have a Discord server? For real, though? I knew it. Yeah. Am I a member? Uh-oh, I'm about to get showed up if I'm not a member already. Oh my god, I'm not! Okay, well, now I am. I'd go to the iNav Discord server. That's where I would go. That's what I would do. I mean, that generally is the best place to be. A lot of times devs are even there. We got a super chat here from Blade FPV. Thank you for $5 Australian. In the ExpressLRS Lewis script, what is the packet rate F1000? Keep it up. I know the answer, but I am going to show you how I would answer this question if I didn't know the answer. We're going to go to the expresslrs.org website, and I'm going to search for F1000. And we're going to look for options. RF mode indexes. This is probably where we want to be. No, F1000. Where it's going to be in the ExpressLRS release notes, I bet. Okay. So this is, I don't know how I would have found this if I didn't already know where it was. So the whole teacher man to fish thing, it's out the window. What? No, not 252. Shut up. 320, thank you. New features. Nope, it was 3. God damn it. It's the 3.0 release notes. Dang it. Here we go. So FLRC. So the F means that we're using FLRC modulation instead of LoRa modulation. Let me zoom in here a little bit. FLRC is higher speed, lower latency, but shorter range, okay? So F1000 means we're doing FLRC at 1,000 hertz, okay? So it is a 1,000 hertz packet rate, which is going to give you extraordinarily low latency, like 2 milliseconds or less. I don't know the actual number off the top of my head. But it's going to have really short range. And when I say really short, I mean, it's shorter than you expect from... They say it can do 10 kilometers. Okay. Yeah, under ideal conditions. But like... Under real-world conditions, especially if you're not doing 1 watt output, if you're only at like 250 milliwatts, that 1,000 hertz can bring you up shorter than... I've seen people get brought up short by the 1,000 hertz. Now these people were at 250 milliwatts, and they had a ceramic antenna. So they're really stacking the deck. But it does have shorter range than like the LoRa modes. So that's what the F1000 is. It is the fastest, lowest latency form of ExpressLRS with also the shortest range. And that 10 kilometers is under ideal conditions in the real world. Like F1000 with a ceramic antenna at 250 milliwatts is about the only way that FreeSky might beat ExpressLRS for range. Okay. All right, I'm going to queue up the next batch of super chats and then take a few more questions from the from the regular chat. Electrical Nightmare. You win the comment lottery. I recently switched to ExpressLRS and did not know that I had to tune the quad for it. I flew it at 250 hertz and was super jittery. Then I picked a tune for it and poof, night and day. Yes. So why is ExpressLRS sometimes super jittery? People especially see this if they've got a quad that's flying well on Betaflight like 4.2 or 4.3 and then they upgrade and they don't load the preset. And so what they experience is that they upgrade to Betaflight 4.4 and suddenly their quad flies like shit. And the answer is not the PIDs, it's the RC Link preset. So every time you update Betaflight, now this doesn't always happen. This doesn't always happen. Sometimes you can get away with using the stock settings. But sometimes what you need to do, and you should just do this every time. What we're going to do is in the Betaflight preset repo, we're going to go to RC Link presets. Okay. And we're going to find the RC Link preset for our control link. So if I was using, if you're using FreeSky, you probably don't need to do this because it's pretty low latency. It's a pretty low update. It's really the faster ones that really matter. But you could load it. You can see it's here. Right? Crossfire. Got it. Ghost. Got it. And of course, ExpressLRS. So you're going to pick, where's the 1000 hertz? There's no 1000 hertz. I'm kind of shocked. Oh well, maybe someday. You're going to pick the one that matches your control link and your packet rate, and that's going to fix that problem, probably. Every time. It's a good idea. Mike Miller in the Discord asks, can I put a GPS with a compass on the Hobbywing X-Rotor stack? Can't find a place to put the SCL and SDA wires. Mike, I'm going to take your word for it that X-Rotor stack doesn't have an SCL and SDA pad. Some flight controllers don't. I assume you can read and look carefully at the wiring diagram. If that's the case, then it will be difficult to use a compass on that flight controller. It's not impossible that you could remap a UART to the SCL and SDA, but it's a little bit of a long shot and it's not always guaranteed to work. And sometimes it just won't work. Unfortunately, I don't have a better answer for you. Joey W. wants to know, what's the secret to flying Spang? I can't seem to get it no matter how much I practice. Brother, if I knew, if I only knew. The people in the chat are saying that the answer is stick time, and there's definitely truth to that. But there's a saying that practice makes perfect, and then there's a rebuttal to that, which is that only perfect practice makes perfect. In other words, if you're practicing and repeating the wrong things, you will learn to do those things, but they may not be the things that you're trying to learn how to do. So in terms of Spang, Like the way that I approach it is to look at, to watch Spang footage and try to think about how it looks and how it feels and which characteristics make it look and feel Spangy to me versus other types of freestyle that I've seen. And then I try and emulate those things. That is not the most efficient way to learn a skill. The most efficient way to learn a skill is to have a person who is good at teaching and who knows the skill teach you how to do it. Because they will focus your practice on the things that will give you the biggest gains. So for example, someone might say that a key to Spang is to be able to do 180 moves with just 100% muscle memory. So you could just bang, 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 180, 180, 180, 180, every direction with perfect repeatability. I've heard some people suggest that. I'm not saying that because I'm not good enough at Spang to act like I could teach somebody how to do it. But that's something people have told me, is that the Spang pilots have excellent muscle memory so they can lock the horizon just with very quickly without little adjustments. And that sort of clean, snappy, precise characteristic is one of the things that makes Spang feel like Spang. So a teacher would tell you, okay, you're going to start working 180s. And we're going to get your rates dialed in exactly how they need to be. And then you're just going to go out there and you're going to work 180s. And keep working them until you get that muscle memory exactly right. You know? I don't know the secret to flying Spang. But that's how I approach it. And if you can find somebody who knows how to do it, who could give you tips. But so often in FPV, we don't have access to those teachers. And we just need to sort of learn by ear. Like I imagine, a lot of musicians do today. A lot of musicians today are not classically trained. They just learn by ear, by listening to other people and trying to emulate what they do. It's not the fastest way to learn, but it is, when you don't have other resources, it is a way to learn. Hey, Bubby. Good to see you, Bubby. One Pack FPV says you can't teach style. I mean, I disagree. Here's why I disagree. You can't teach style. One Pack, the existence of session musicians proves that you can teach style. You can learn it. The existence of ballroom dancing proves that you can teach and learn style. What I mean by that is, when you say you can't teach style, you're thinking of extremely cutting edge, creative people. You're thinking of Jimi Hendrix before electric rock and roll blues existed, and Jimi Hendrix, helped invent that. He had his own style, and people who came after him learned to emulate his style to some degree, though, didn't they? They absolutely did. They have their own style. So I go back, though, to session musicians and ballroom dancing. Like, you look at ballroom dancing, you watch a waltz competition or a tango or a salsa or whatever you want. Everybody there, in little ways, has their own style, but also everybody there is doing the same dance in a very similar style. That's the nature of it, right? It's regimented. And session musicians, these are some of the best musicians in the world who probably most people don't even know their names. And they show up in the morning at a recording studio, and the band is there, and they say, we need you to write a guitar solo for this. And they have to write the guitar solo in the style of the band. And that's their skill. They just do it. They can just emulate the style of anybody. And they do. So you can. You can. But I know what you mean. You can't teach style. I think you can. The real thing is that if all you ever do is emulate other people's style, then you're not really finding your sort of highest expression of your own creativity. But the flip side of that is that not everybody has this fountain of creativity inside of themselves where they're going to put this amazing thing out into the world. Like for me, I will never be the most innovative, genre-defining freestyle pilot. The best that I hope for myself is to be able to have a good time copying the style of people who are better than me. That's just it. So. All right, we got about 8 or 9 super chats stacked up, so let's take them. Yeah, let's do some super chats. Thank you, Will Fountain, for 899 rupees. I believe those are rupees. How can I configure Edge TX and TX16S to control 360-degree servos? Ooh, Will Fountain, how does a 360-degree servo input signal even work, guys? I'm pretty sure it just, if it's above 1500, it spins one way, and if it's below 1500, it spins the other way. Let's check this. This page looks like it's going to have our answer. For example, this is a typical servo motor. They do not provide position control. We provide a 1 point. I see. Yeah, no, I was right. So what you're going to do is you're going to use a switch or you're going to use a potentiometer. And you're going to output that to that aux channel to the servo. And then when the switch is up, the servo will spin one way. When the switch is down, the servo will spin the other way. And when the switch is in the center, the servo will not move. Or you could use a potentiometer to control the speed of the servo. So if you just use a switch, it'll be max speed one direction, max speed the other way. Now, if you need to know how to map a switch to an aux channel on the TX16S, I've got a tutorial about how to do that. This is an older tutorial, but it will get you in the ballpark. Yeah, Will Fountain. The answer is just map an aux channel. Brandon Beans, this is a 360-degree servo he's asking about. Maybe you missed that. I don't know if you missed it. Or maybe you're just answering a completely different question. So Will Fountain, step 1, go to the mixer screen in the TX16S, create a new mixer line on an unused aux channel, and then for the source of that mixer line, choose, I would suggest, one of the side sliders or a potentiometer. Then that will cause that channel to come out of your receiver. Your receiver will need to be a PWM receiver. Oh, if you have a flight controller, you're going to need to do servo remapping. That's going to be a mess. So let me give you another video. This is actually a better... Oh boy. I cannot... Oh, here we go. I got the video. Here's another video that's going to help you. Will Fountain, here's another video that's going to help you. This is my servo setup video. Now, he's not using a 360-degree servo, but the setup is going to be exactly the same. Okay. Next up, we've got DDOT. Thank you for a 220 Canadian. What do you think of the RVS Mopax frame? Dangerous. I'm just as likely to shit all over it as anything else, but since you asked... reminds me a lot of an AOS 5. Did this come before the AOS 5 or after? It doesn't matter. I see. So, what do we got here? These triangle style arms are more rigid than just having the arms stick all the way out. It's the same thing the AOS 5 did. The arms are thicker than the AOS, it looks like. I don't know if they're thicker in the vertical direction, but the width of the arm is more, which suggests that it might be more durable. That's the place where the AOS 5 arm breaks. It has mounting for 20, 25, and 30 millimeter. That's good. It's got 2 sets of mounting, and both of them can take a 30 millimeter, so you could pretty much mount whatever you want. That's nice. There is no standoff here. There's potential for some kind of resonance issues when you have a long span like this with no standoff. Doesn't mean that there's gonna be resonance issues, but there's potential. You would want to be aware of that as you went into sort of tuning and building it, or you'd want to check with people who owned it. What's going on with the front end? I like this box style. This is going to be a very strong front end, in my opinion. Two standoffs close together like this with a piece of carbon here, boxing it in. I think that's going to be pretty strong. Certainly strong enough. The weak spot would be this carbon here, but they've reinforced that with a little bit of TPU. This is a nice approach. I like that the camera mounting gives you the option to move the camera forward or back. So depending on whether you've got a deeper or a shallower camera, you have options to get it the correct width, the correct placement. Oh, is this actually a TPU print? That's nice. I like the TPU inserts that let you have a little more flexibility about how you mount your camera. Having the XT60 come out here is, I'm not sure it's a plus or a minus. I like that it's protected with this insert to help keep the carbon from tearing it. The battery strap mount, the battery strap holders seem like a good idea, but it feels to me like the top is narrow enough that the battery is going to be wider than the top. And so the battery strap is actually going to come out underneath the battery, which I don't love. I'm not sure. I mean, just don't use the battery strap holders. Big deal. It looks to me like this screw goes through the arm. So does the arm have a cutout to allow you to remove the arm without taking out that screw? It's impossible to know. They don't have a picture of an arm. No, they don't. Durability prioritized over weight. Yeah, they focused on resonance. Truss-armed frame, good. That is objectively good for resonance. Can we see here? Okay, so that's not my favorite thing. I don't know if it's an absolute deal breaker, but it looks like the arm, I mean, I don't know how else you would do it, If you're going to have a truss arm frame, I don't know. You're going to need 2 screws. It's a shame that it's also the standoff. I guess it's not the end of the world. And there are many frames that do that. But some people would dislike that. It's a really well thought out frame. That's a really well thought out frame. Single piece bottom plate. Some people would prefer split deck. And this design with the one piece of carbon going between the arms, I don't know if that's like the best. It's good though. How much does it weigh? $70, $75. Yeah, everything's getting more expensive. It's not ridiculous. 30-day satisfaction guaranteed. No tuning required. S-tier durability. Free STLs. Weight. 150 grams with the TPU. It's not that much TPU. That's a chonker. That's a chonker. I mean, if you're going for a durable frame, 150 grams is not like the end of the world, but that's a little bit of a chonker. 150, it's getting up there. I'm surprised it's 150. It doesn't look like it should be 150. He must be using no, I was going to say he must be using 3mm carbon throughout, but he's not. 2mm for the bottom plate, 2.5 for the mid plate, 2.5 for the top plate. And the arms are 6mm. Yeah, so 2. I'm surprised it's that heavy. I wonder if you left off some of the TPU, how much you would save. I don't think you'd save that much. There's not that much TPU. There you go. I'm surprised it's that heavy. I didn't expect that from the pictures. It doesn't look like it would be that heavy. Matt. Thank you, Matt, for a 11 Canadian dollars super chat. Hang on, I have to add more. I have to add more stuff to the queue. Quad City Bay Area, you're leaving a lot of super chats. More. Okay. Matt asks, I'm brand new at FPV and trying to learn about what's the latest and greatest 7-inch long-distance parts to build my own drone. Any advice on the best parts to use? Matt, I don't have a 7-inch long-distance page on my website. I've been thinking about adding one, but it's not, long distance is not an area that I focus on a lot because it's basically impossible to do long distance legally in the United States. And I am not interested in blatantly and obviously doing illegal stuff. I am interested in following the regulations 100% of the time, every time, of course. Does anybody have like a link to a good 7-inch build? Like people are saying the FR7. I mean, that's a frame, right? What about a full build? We got any good builds on rotorbuilds.com or something? Eric Toft. You got a link, Eric Toft? Yeah, the reason that I don't make videos about long range is that videos once posted live on the internet forever. And we saw what happened with the FAA and Philly Mikey. At least what seems to have happened is that once they decided to F him over, they went back through his content and they basically just found every video he ever posted where they could prove the things they needed to prove to go after him. And that, to me, was the most interesting thing about the whole FAA Philly Mikey situation. For those who don't know, Philly Mikey is an FPV pilot. He's also a DJI pilot. and he has a YouTube channel, and he got fined. Originally, he got like one citation, and then the version of the story that I heard is that he didn't really respond to them and kind of blew them off, and eventually they escalated, and eventually they went through his whole channel, and they found 100 plus videos, and they just fined him for every single one of them, leading to a ridiculously like a 6-figure fine. I don't know what the current situation is on that. I'm assuming he hasn't paid the fine, because I think most of us don't have 6 figures laying around. But he could, I don't really know. It doesn't really matter. What was interesting to me about that situation is my understanding is that they specifically fined him for his live streams, even though there were non-live streams where he appeared to be breaking the rules. And the theory that I have about why they fined him for his live streams is that he screencasted his phone screen, and he had the DJI Fly app up. And so it was clear that he was the pilot, he was manipulating the controls and the exact location, altitude, etc. of the aircraft, as well as, because he was live streaming, the exact time and date of the flight. There was absolutely no ambiguity, no sort of plausible deniability about, well, maybe I wasn't flying, or, well, maybe it wasn't that day, or, well, etc., etc., etc. They just had him dead to rights. And it doesn't mean that the FAA can't come after you if they don't have you dead to rights. But it does, when I think about flying long range, I'm like, there's just no way. If you put up a video where you appear to be flying long range, there's just no way to sort of wink, wink. Sure, it wasn't really long range. Like, you blur out your GPS coordinates, but come on. So to me, that's over the line. We got a couple of suggestions here for some builds. Eirik Toft suggests this one, and I respect Eirik's opinion about 7-inch. Now, this is a 2021 build, Eirik. Is that going to be an issue? Is this stuff all up to date? Like, for example, are there, like, Brother Hobby Avenger, are those still like the 7-inch motor? Because he specifically said, like, the latest and greatest. Well, we got a build for the Frosty FR7 on April 30th. That's only a year ago. Good suggestion. The key thing you want to focus on are the motors and the frame, I think. Everything else is not going to be the thing that determines your range and your battery life and your flight time. So get the right motors, and the right motors are 2806. And then what KV? For long range, lower KV. For freestyle stuff, higher KV. So that's some stuff to think about. Let's post this in the chat right here. All right, continuing on. Jean Miranda, thank you for a $10 super chat. I broke an arm and motor on my Nazgul. I'm super sad. I want to replace it, but I need to solder. Once I change it, anything I need to know with the Betaflight settings. Jean Miranda, the only thing you need to definitely know is that if you solder the motor wires one way, the motor will spin clockwise. And if you swap any two of those wires, then the motor will spin the other way, counterclockwise. There is no way to predict, like if I do it straight through, will it be clockwise? And if I swap any two, will it be counterclockwise? But you definitely need the motor to spin the correct direction. What I would suggest you do is solder them straight through. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 to the ESC. Probably that's how iFlight did it from the factory, and probably the motor will end up spinning the correct direction. But if it's spinning the wrong direction, go into Betaflight, go into the Motors tab, and there is a motor direction wizard where you can change the direction of the motor in Betaflight, so you don't have to resolder it. Delta Foxtrot, thank you for a $10 super chat. After I crash my quad, when I power it up, I only hear the first two tones. When I plug in USB to the computer, I hear the rest of the tones. What does that mean? It means that the 5-volt regulator on your flight controller has died. And the reason it powers up from USB is that USB provides 5-volt power separate from the regulator on board. So that's a flight controller problem. Most people would replace the flight controller at this point, but if you're extremely resistant to that idea, you can buy a 5-volt regulator off just a little 2-amp 5-volt regulator and solder the output of the 5-volt regulator to one of the 5-volt pads on your flight controller, and it'll power it up. Daniel Bailey, I don't know how Wes could have done his flights legally in Australia. I mean, you may know more. You probably do know more about Australian law than I do, but I'm not sure. Is there any way, actually, that Wesley Vardy could have done his flights legally in Australia? Callie FPV, thanks for a $5 super chat. 20 megahertz versus 40 megahertz on the O3. Is that comparable to low latency versus high quality on the Vista? No. That is comparable to 25 megabit per second versus 50 megabit per second. That is a different question from low latency versus high quality. So on the V2 goggles, you have settings. You have low latency and high quality. That is the frame rate. Low latency is 120 FPS for the Vista. For the O3, it's only 100 frames per second. Well, sorry. The O3 doesn't... Okay, hang on, back up. We'll talk about the V2 and the Vista. On the Vista, you've got low latency and high quality. Low latency is 120 frames per second. High quality is 60 frames per second. Low latency has about 25 milliseconds of latency. High quality has about 35 milliseconds of latency. I'm sorry, I don't know why that number came. Because I was thinking about 50 megabits per second. Forget that. The reason that high quality has better quality when all that's changed is the frame rate is that if you have so many bits per second and you need to send half as many frames per second, then you get twice as many bits to encode each of those frames. Okay? 25 versus 50 megabits per second. That's the channel width. That's a completely separate and independent parameter. That is the amount of bandwidth that you're using to encode the data stream, and it is the width of the data stream in the frequency space. So 25 megahertz channel, 25 megabits per second channel is half the width, and therefore you have 8 25 megabit per second channels and only 3 50 megabit per second channels. But because you have twice as many bits, you get more quality. So the highest quality you can get out of the V2 system is going to be 50 megabits per second, high quality, 60 FPS. 50 megabits per second, 60 FPS. That's going to give you more latency, but the maximum quality. The next one down is going to be 50 megabits per second, high quality, high frame rate, low quality. Ugh. And then 25 megabits per second, low quality. And I don't know where 25 megabits per second high quality would come in. Which of those would be better or worse? So now let's talk about the O3. The O3 doesn't have high quality versus low quality, but it does have a frame rate you can change. On the O3, you can choose you can choose 1080p 100 FPS. You can choose 1080p 60 FPS. That is high quality versus low quality, the frame rate. You just choose the frame rate instead of having this abstract setting. And you can choose the channel width, either 20 or 40 megahertz, which is equivalent to 25 and 50 megabits per second. So those settings still exist on both the O3 and the V2. It's just the O3 presents them to you in a different way. Cinnabon, thank you for a $10 super chat. We've been chatting back and forth on email about getting weird desyncs with my ESC. The ESC may have water damage. Do I buy a new ESC or stay? I mean, you have an ESC, it got water damage, and now you're having weird desyncs and it's dropping out of the air. It's time for a new ESC. If you really, really don't want to buy a new ESC, a thing that probably won't work, but might work, would be to take the ESC, take a toothbrush, and get some rubbing alcohol, and scrub the shit out of the ESC with the rubbing alcohol on both sides. and perhaps that will clean off some little piece of corrosion or something that's causing a problem. But probably that won't work, and probably you're going to buy a new ESC. DDOT, thank you for a 550 Canadian. I read that the DJI goggles Integra are AccuSync since is the O3 Air unit AccuSync, or does that mean there'll be a new Air unit? The O3 Air unit is AccuSync 4, I think. The V2 system is AccuSync 3. There's like several different versions of AccuSync, and the DJI goggles Integra, no one knows what they are. No one knows what they are. Does anyone? I mean, it's all leaked anyway. So I don't know. No one knows. Quad City Bay Area, thanks for a $2 super chat. Do you have a tutorial for repairing flight controller JST ports and pins? I don't. No, not really. I wish I had a better idea. I have one where I fixed a bent pin inside a plug, but I think you're talking about like if they rip off. The best thing to do if they rip off is solder to the pads underneath. Hey, can I jump in for a second? Pause this for a second. I have an interjection to make. Recently in my comments section, someone complained about my pronunciation of solder, and we're not going to go on this rant again. I'm over it. I'm not going to justify like reasons why that pronunciation might actually be correct, because there's a there's a deeper truth. And here's the deeper truth. I was watching a video today. This guy is English. He's a competitive eater. His YouTube channel, in case you're curious, is named Beard Meets Food, like Beard Meets Food. And it's super fun to watch him eat a ridiculous. He eats a preposterous amount of food and goes and does these food challenges. It's great because they put out this plate of food and you go like, oh, that's some good looking steak or whatever, and then he just eats it all, and then it's then everyone's amazed. I'm getting off track. I learned today that in the United Kingdom, there's a thing called rocket. Because she brought him out his plate of food and she said, you don't have to eat the rocket. That's not part of the challenge. And I looked at all of the things on his plate, and I swear to God, like I was pretty sure it wasn't the steak, and I was pretty sure it wasn't the fries, because I know that they call them chips. And that left the sauce and the salad. One of them must be the rocket by process of elimination. And I looked it up, and it turns out that the arugula salad, what we in the United States call arugula, which is a type of lettuce, they call in the United Kingdom, they call it rocket. And they spell it R-O-C-K-E-T. They spell it rocket. And I thought, why in the frick do they call arugula salad rocket? There's nothing even remotely rocket-like about a damn pile of green salad on a plate. And do you know why the reason is? Do you know why the reason is? It is because in French, the name for that is roquette. I don't have a French pronunciation. It is spelled R-O-Q-U-E-T-T-E, and the damn English just were like, fine, it's called rocket. So don't you anybody in the whole European continent, I'm lumping you all in here because you all frickin' do it, but especially the English, don't you come at me and tell me I'm pronouncing solder wrong. By God, at least we spell it right. If you are going to pronounce roquette as rocket and frickin' spell it R-O-C-K-E-T, you can F right off with anything else you have to say about spelling and pronunciation. Okay. All right, good. I will say solder. You have no moral high ground at all. It's not even like things like, weird place names, right? weird place names in United Kingdom. No, fine. Historically, there's reasons why the names of places are spelled the way they are and pronounced the way they are. But you took a word from another language, mispronounced it, and changed the spelling to match a word in your language that sounds like your mispronunciation of the word you stole. At least we made up arugula. Okay. Moving on. Quad City Bay Area, thank you for a $5 super chat. I'm really surprised at how fast Walksnail V2 came out. Maybe too many complaints about the V1 durability. I mean, if that's true, then kudos to Walksnail. The V2 is an improvement over the V1 in most ways that I can see. So good for them. They didn't frickin', I mean, let's face it. Some companies, it would have been 3 years from now and we'd still be on the V1. So good for them. They're busting their ass. Excuse me. Oh, we do it too, Killazebra. Killazebra points out that arugula is from rucola, which is the Italian word for the plant. Yeah. Good for them. That's my point, Aber. We all do it. There's no correct way to pronounce it. It's just a language, which is a living, changing thing. All right. Let me queue up some more super chats. We are not getting... Why? Oh boy. Well, we have... Oh, so we've scrolled off the end, have we? Uh-oh. I ranted for too long, and now I can't get this chat back. Okay. Willie Fountain, thank you for 8.99 rupees. I'm using an ExpressLRS PWM receiver. The center is 1500, but to make it rotate 360, the PWM signal needs to go below 1000. I'm not able to figure out how to do that. Change your endpoints in your radio. Go to the Outputs tab and change the output to exceed 100%. That's what to do. Or yeah, that's what I would do. In the Outputs tab, change the endpoints to 105% or something. Matt Cinderson. Why am I not seeing any... What's going on with my... Something's up. I don't think my... I need to reload this page. No, that's not it. Weird. Okay, I don't understand. All right, well, I better read these super chats then, because I can't queue them up. I don't know why. Matt Cinderson, thanks for a $5 super chat. What does a descending flight controller tone mean? I'm going to need more information than that. Is it your ESC going dee-doo-doo-doo-dee-doo-doo-doo? I'm sorry to say, Matt, that's not enough information. Please email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com. I want to answer your question, not just because you left a super chat, but because that's just what I do. Feel free to email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com. I'd love to help. Vicky Barati, thank you for $44.90 MYR. Is that... I'm not going to guess because I'll get it wrong and insult you accidentally. Is it Malaysia? Malaysian ringgit. Thank you for $44.90. Just saying thank you. You are awesome. Learning something every day. Oh, that's really nice to hear. Teddy Tuned. Good to see you again, Teddy. Thank you for a $10 super chat. All is well. Teddy is the guy who invited me out to Colombia to fly in the mall. That video should release tomorrow, Teddy. I'm waiting I'm hoping to get a piece of footage from Phantom FPV if he has time to upload it. He's a very busy man. If I don't get it by tomorrow, I'll just publish the video. But if I do get it, that would be cool. DDOT, thanks for 220 Canadian. What's your favorite 5-inch frame and why? Well, clearly it's the QAVS JB edition. Yeah, it's one reason why I like the way it looks. I think it looks cool. I like the sort of combination of curves and straight lines. It's just that's not the number one reason I picked it, but it does appeal to me. And I got a hand in designing it. So I got to say, can you make it a little shorter? Can you make it a little, can you do this? Can you do that? And at the end of the day, then it's the frame that fits all my requirements. So it's the one I like the best. Delta Foxtrot, thank you for a $5 super chat. When I'm changing settings on my goggles V2 to 50 megabit per second, why does my DJI remote lose link? Oh, Delta Foxtrot, did you ask me this question over email? I answered this question. Maybe it was on a live stream. I can't remember where. I think I know the answer, though. When the DJI system first came out, it didn't have 50 megabit per second mode. 50 megabit per second mode was added in a later firmware update. The DJI system, the controller, the goggles, and the air unit all talk to each other. That's all sort of intermingled. And so my guess is that your V1 controller is on an old firmware that doesn't support 50 megabit per second mode. So when you put the air unit in 50 megabit per second mode, the V1 no longer can talk to it and it just loses link. I think you need to update firmware on your V1 controller. And if that's not it, then I have no idea. That's my guess. JC Madison asks, have you ever worked with CAD? So you try to design your own stuff. Indeed. JC, I have. Let me... For example, this video is about my first time... Oh, hello, Joshua from the past. This video is about my first time using Fusion 360. So I have done some of this stuff. Is there any more? I don't think that's gonna... No. Nope. I think it's this. This is the one. So this is the only video I made about it. But it is a video about it. Oh, there's my mesh mixer. That's a good one. That's a good one, too. 18K views. SolidWorks is maybe easier than Fusion. I don't know why I was using Fusion. I think somebody suggested Fusion for a reason. $18K views. Lifetime. Videos. I don't want to know about retention. Top videos. Wow. Lifetime. Interesting. Interesting. What is my most popular video ever? I guess I should update that video. Man, this video absolutely smashed. 500,000, 600,000. That's my top one. Top how to 10 FPV freestyle tricks. Learn these first. That one crushed. This is so old that it's completely out of date. I think Betaflight devs linked to this one. My DJI FPV review, if I wanted to have a bigger channel, I could totally just do DJI content. Like this is far from the most popular DJI release ever. GPS rescue, people want to know about that. Then this name drops Mr. Steel, 260,000. I have no freaking idea why the DRL simulator has 250,000. Best PC simulator. Oh, apparently simulators. Apparently, like, best simulator is a keyword. Best FPV quad, 225. No, best Betaflight has a... This is why. Look, best. This is why. Caddx Vista setup. 160 mile an hour racing drone, 203,000. This is my old. Why 0 impression? Something's wrong with that. Oh, I'm glad my soldering tutorial is coming up in the 100,000s. Anyway. 183,000 for Velcro sucks. Would love. Yeah, interesting. It's always interesting to see what's popular. And then, look, Mr. Steel, 150,000 views. Everything needs Mr. Steel. Some of these I'm proud of. Like this being at 144,000 views, I'm super proud of. This is like super niche content, totally up my alley. It's nice when that's also popular. Anyway, just a little navel gazing there. Always torn on what's going to be the most popular stuff. Fenton Cray. Should I be using the 20 by 20 mounting to attach my Foxy or Reaper Extreme or just some tape with a heatsink side up? I'd just use tape. I would use alien tape, which I think is the best. If you're not going to use a zip tie, I'd use alien tape. If you have 20 by 20 mounting and you don't mind doing it, by all means do it. But like you'd have to find the right length of screw, and I don't know, it seems like a hassle. I'd probably just use tape. There's no wrong choice here. We got about 10 minutes left in the chat and the stream, folks. Aaron Ciotti is going to be streaming after me over on his channel, and he's going to post the link to the stream. So after I go off the air, you can start. You can watch his stream. WKFPV asks, how come you have very low latency on analog 60 hertz goggles, but you need 100 or 120 FPS on digital to get about double that latency? Very good question, WKFPV. Because analog has almost no processing. So with analog, if you've got a camera sensor, like if you've got a wide dynamic range sensor, the latency of the camera may be 15 to 30 or maybe even a little more milliseconds. But if you have a low latency analog camera that's not processing the image very much, the latency out of the camera could be a few milliseconds. In the video transmitter, it's literally not processing the signal at all. It's just like modulating it onto an RF baseband signal and transmitting it. Like, so there's essentially zero delay through the video transmitter. Like, obviously, electrical signals always have some transmission latency. So we're talking picoseconds, though, I would think. We're in the picoseconds range. The signal flies through the air. That's the same for analog versus digital. And it's received on the other end. And on the receive side, once again, with analog, there's essentially zero latency. It comes into the receiver, it goes into the screen and is output to the screen. But with digital, there's computation. So the other thing is, so with digital, you take the signal off the camera, and then you have to encode it. Typically H.264 or H.265 encoding. That is processor intensive and introduces some delay. Anytime you're doing compression, you end up with delay. Because in order to compress the data, here, ready? We're going to compress this data. Okay. Let me make an analogy. Anytime you compress data, what you're doing is you're taking a block of data and you're replacing that repeats throughout the data, and you're replacing it with a smaller block of data. So the problem is that in order to compress the data, you need to know that there is a repeating block of data. And in order to know that, you need to get a big chunk of data in which you can see that the block of data repeats so that you can compress it. So if I start transmitting a frame of data, a video frame, you can't begin transmitting that until you've finished encoding it. And you can't begin encoding it until you have some of it. Whereas with analog, and HD0, by the way, as soon as that video frame starts coming into the VTX, it just goes right out the other side. We're just retransmitting it. We're not processing it. We're not packaging it. It's like, here's an analogy that will kind of work. Let's say we've got a UPS truck and we want to fill it with boxes. And we want to fill it with as efficiently as possible. So if we just stuff boxes in it until we reach the back of the truck, oh, you can't go yet. Because what if a smaller box comes along that we could tuck in there? On the other hand, with HD0 and analog, we get one box, we put it in the truck leaves. Okay? So there's processing delay in digital video transmitters that compress the signal, and that adds delay. And then there's the same thing happens in reverse on the receiver side. And this is why digital inherently has higher latency than analog, except for HD0, which doesn't use compression and is still digital. So maybe that statement's not quite accurate. Captain Bry, I'm not sure that Captain Bry is joking and says, should we use an NVIDIA GPU on our VTX? I'm not convinced that would decrease latency. I don't know. The pipeline, the ability of an NVIDIA GPU to process massive amounts to perform a lot of computations in a short period of time doesn't necessarily mean it's going to have low enough latency to do an FPV system. Gaming also likes low latency, so maybe it does. But the power requirements of an NVIDIA GPU are a total deal breaker. Camel FPV, thanks for £5. I've got 5 quads with the FCC hack and 1200 milliwatts, but I'm going to build one with O3. If I update the firmware on my V2 goggles, do I lose my hacks? You do not. Those hacks are preserved. You're good. Iwandi, you're right, Iwandi. Thank you for that correction. File compression, like zip compression, is looking for repeating blocks of data and removing them. Video compression, or replacing them with shorter blocks. Video compression doesn't work like that. You're right. It's analyzing and removing insignificant information. Suffice it to say, I'm not an expert on H.264 compression, so my analogy was flawed. Folks, that's going to bring us to the end of the stream. I am caught up on the super chats. No, sorry, I got one more super chat. Got to do it. Cameron Elia, thank you for a $2 super chat. RSSI value increases as throttle increases. You have your flight controller set to get its RSSI value from an aux channel. I'm going to guess that if you go into Betaflight in the receiver tab, you will see in the receiver tab, you will see your RSSI channel right here is set to aux something, and that aux channel is also mirroring your throttle. So what you're going to want to do is go into your mixer screen on your radio and see if an aux channel goes up and down as you raise and lower the throttle. But you could also see it in the receiver tab. And if so, well, you need to delete that. And then you need to figure out the right way to get RSSI into your flight controller. Okay, folks, that is going to bring us to the end of the stream. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you again next week at the usual time, and I will wish Siati a good stream himself. Good night, everybody.